What's up, y'all? I'm gonna try to do this video really quickly, and my lighting is not the best right now because the sun is shining bright, and yeah. But anyway, I wanted to share something. There has been a time where always felt attacked, and it used to bother me because I'm the type of person where I stay in my lane and I mind my business. I don't bother people, really don't bother people, and don't bother people, don't bother with people. And um, I always felt attacked because while I'm minding my business, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then here's chaos. And so, one thing that I have learned is that when you are chosen, when you are called, um, you will be tried in all types of situations, all types of situations. And so, um, I was doing some. I took a lot of notes because I was doing some studying and stuff, and it was actually from the book of Acts, the ninth chapter. And this is the story where Saul was on the road to Damascus and he had an encounter with Jesus. And so, mind you, at this time he was blind and he had no sight. And in his dream, he had a dream and he saw some things. And in the dream, um, like I said, he saw. And even even the blind still saw a vision. Even in him losing his sight, he was still able to see a vision. God still gave him a vision. God still gave him some clarity. God still gave him some type of direction. He was still able to see. And so, while he had no sight, he had his insight. And so Jesus had called his disciples, his disciple Ananias, to go and lay his hands on him and restore his sight. And so Ananias was like, he began to kind of question, you know, what Jesus was asking, like, are you serious? Because of what Saul had done, and see all the evil that he had done to the saints. And so Ananias was kind of confused, but he obeyed. And so the crazy thing about it is we don't get to pick who God chooses. We don't get to pick that. And so when God tells us to move, when he speaks and says for us to do something, we are to be obedient. We are to follow what he has said. Even when we had to be like, huh? What? Like we don't understand. We still have to be obedient and move how God has says move. And so after his sight and his strength was restored, he went straight to the synagogue where Jesus was. And so of course, like I said, they began wondering, is this the same Saul that did XYZ? And you see, this is the same thing as people now, see, even people like to bring up your past. When it's time for you to be elevated, promoted to whatever next level, people like to bring up your past to try to, what's the word I want to use, Holy Spirit, to try and bring down whatever it is that's trying to come to you. And so when God has something for us outside of our own desires, he intervenes and he disrupts our lives. So whatever it is that we're doing or whatever it is that someone else does to us, God intervenes if it is not in his will for his plan. And so Saul didn't do anything to Jesus per se, you know, but he attacked those who followed him. And when you attack God's children, God takes that personal. And so all the times where I felt attacked, as much as it bothered me to know that I stay in my own lane and don't bother nobody, as much as I knew that was me, God takes that personal. And so while I had found myself at one time wrapped up in my emotions of feeling like, oh my God, what is it? Like, I don't mess with nobody. Like, I be better. Like, yeah, because sometimes people try to take you there. But see, where God has me, I have to always keep him front and center. Always keep him front and center. And I pray day and night. I pray throughout situations. I pray before things happen. I ask God, I need you. I need you to be my mouthpiece. I need you to protect me for whatever that is trying to come upon me. And God does that. God does that. So when people are out there trying to hurt you, diminish you, throw dirt on your name, talk about you, start chaos, God takes that personal. And you have to deal with him. And one thing I have learned, God hit harder than we do. So when we try to retaliate and get our lick back and all that, save it. Save it. I just recently went through 2 situations, as a matter of fact, where I was literally tried to be taken back to where I once had been delivered from. And so as hard as it was for me to not remind a person who I am, who I was, as hard as it was for me not to remind those individuals who I was, God intervened. And when God intervenes, he don't intervene in a way that we always want. And in my certain situation, the way that I wanted to handle that situation, the way I wanted to speak on that situation, I said what I said, but God had guided my tongue in a way where what I said was what I said, but God was going to deal with all the rest. And so as much as I wanted to handle that myself, I'm not even going to lie to you, it ate me up. It ate me up not to be able to handle that myself. But one thing that I do learn, when we make a decision, we have to be ready for that consequence. And so I knew that if I chose to act how I wanted, then there would most definitely be a consequence to how I was going to cut up. Okay? But like I said, whenever a situation arises, I'm like, God, take care of this. God, put your hands on this. God, be my mouthpiece. And I have to ask God that all the time. And so sometimes our name can be greater than our situation. And I know for sure I'm chosen. I know for sure I'm called. And I know for sure my name holds weight. And so when people try to diminish who you are because they see something in you that they want to be you or want, when they do that, we have to learn that we control what happened to us. We control that. And so one of the other things I have learned and have been learning is self-control. No matter how bad you want to react to something or say something or do something or feel like you getting your lick back or feeling like you getting even, don't. You don't. And I know for a fact, I'm preaching from experience. I'm preaching from my own personal testimonies. It is hard to do the right thing. Hard to do the right thing. And so like I said, while Saul didn't do anything to Jesus, he was attacking his people. And so when people begin to fight us, they are fighting God, the one who purposed us, the one who anointed us, the one who gifted us. They attack him. And so when God is attacked, oh my God. So if God takes it personal for his children to be attacked, could you imagine how he feels, how personal he takes that when he's been attacked? So when Saul had attacked the saints, when he had to attack his people, Jesus' people. Oh my God. God had to take his sight. Jesus took his sight. He took his sight. He made them blind. So when God gets you back, God can hit back and it be real ugly too. But what God takes away, he can also restore. And so what we don't have to have the last word or fend for ourselves, because God has a way of dealing with our enemies. And I have learned that and am continuously still learning more just on that one particular statement I just said. We don't have to have the last word. And one of the most valuable lessons I have learned, I share it all the time with people when I talk to people. You don't got to have the last word, Samara. You don't got to have the last word. Even if you right. Even if you right. Everything does not deserve a response. That was one of the most humbling, gut-wrenching, delivering, inspiring things that I could have ever learned. Like I said before, I was going to get a lick back. Baby, I was going to get the last word. I was going to do all that. Yes, that was me. But God had delivered me from being that person. And although God have delivered you from being that person, he'll still allow situations to happen and arise so he could see who you really are. So he could see whether you have really learned what he was trying to teach you. And so sometimes we do fall short of God's glory when we do things, when he tells us not to react to certain things, or how he tells us to respond to things. And when we do the opposite, God still has a grace. God still gives us mercy. But we also have a due diligence. We have to do the same thing. We have to do the same thing. We can be attacking Jesus. We're going to be attacking him by fighting people. So when we get in an argument with people, and when we decide to have words with people and go back and forth with people, even though we don't take it to level 1000, we can still be attacking God. Because God says, let me fight your battles. It's nothing that's too big or too small for him. But although sometimes we get in the way of our own selves, and like I said, we try to handle what God can the only person that can put a stop to, really. And so what we feel, our opinion does not equate to what God's purpose is for us. Because we want something, that don't mean that's what God wants for us, and that's not what he purposed us for. We have to be convicted. And a lot of times I have been in situations where I have been convicted after certain things happen. And you have to have an encounter with God that will show you yourself. And I have had a lot of encounters with God that have shown me myself, my better half, and it has shown me the halfway I need to work on. And that's conviction. And the God I serve, my God, my Father, when he convicts me, his conviction is so diligent. Sometimes it hit me in the gut, but yet while it hits me in that gut, it's so diligent, because how he corrects me, how he grabs a hold of a situation, how sometimes I be, he have to say, all right, he have to grab me like, all right, my daughter, like, his conviction, and it make you feel some kind of way for a second, but you don't lay in that feeling. Because I know when it first started happening, Lord, when God started convicting me, oh my God, I felt the lowest of the low. when I first started receiving God's conviction. Not first start receiving God correcting me. No. When I first started receiving what it was He was teaching me. When I opened my eye, when I took the blinders off, when I was able to see what He was teaching me, oh my God, it was no more being the victim. It was no more being the victim. I was actually the villain in some of those situations. And God will take the blinders off you. And when He do, sometimes He hit you in the gut. That conviction hurt. Sometimes that conviction hurt. But the conviction always helps. It always helps. And so whenever you are misaligned, God will change your value system. So Paul, who was Saul, who was leading men, he was now being led by the men he was leading. So the people that he mistreated, the people that, he did whatever he did to, all the evil deeds, people that he did, all that stuff to, he now had to follow them. They now had to lead them because he was a blind man. He couldn't see. God took it. God said, okay, you want to keep doing this? You want to, do my people like that? Like I said, when God gets you, He hit harder than we do. And so He took his sight. So God shut His eyes until Paul got it right. He shut his eyes until Paul got it right. Especially when we stubborn, especially when we hard-headed, especially when we want to fight. Part of what we have to do, part of our job is to be a part of a resurrection. We have to be lifted from our old mess. We have to be lifted from our old selves. We have to be resurrected. And so Saul wasn't, when Saul wasn't at the tomb, Jesus did a special appearance. He will come wherever you are, and He will show up. God will come wherever you are, and He show up. So He totally wrecked everything in Saul's life that was built. Everything Saul had, everything, He took it away from him. So Saul came to Damascus to be strong, not to be blind and to be led by men. He came to run the show. But God had to show him who really ran the show. And when we come into situations, sometimes it don't always end up as we think it will. We might think, oh, we got the upper hand, we can do this, that, this, and it'll end totally different than what we imagine. There should be nothing that supersedes the power of God over your life. Nothing. Not even you. Not even you. When God says for us to forgive somebody, we have to forgive them. When He says let it go, we have to let it go. When He says it's over, it's over. And we cause a lot of stuff on ourselves because we don't want to let stuff go. We don't want to let people go. We don't want to let what people did to us go. We live in those things. Now, God didn't say that we had to forget those things that happened to us, but we had to forgive those things. And so that was a part that I had to deal with. God delivered me, from being done wrong by people, not wanting to love them after, not forgiving them, because I forgave him, and really, you really can't forgive if you don't have the love behind it. Because if you forgive a person, like I said, when God says for us to forgive, we are to forgive them for what they did, which means we should not continue to live in the moments of what had happened. And so behind that, God wants us to stand on love, because God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son for us. So in order for us to love our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, even people that have harmed us, we have to have love behind it. And that love says, okay, I forgive you. Now, the love does not mean that you have to continue in a close-knit relationship with a person. And see, a lot of people, they'll say, oh, you Christian, but you don't talk to so-and-so. No, God doesn't say we have to continue in a a close-knit relationship with those individuals, you treat them accordingly. And accordingly is according to how God has spoken for us to treat them. We forgive and we love. And so long as we are forgiving and loving on people who have mistreated us and hurt us, God got everything else taken care of. Because if we decide to handle it in a way that we want to, God, he's going to take care of us. And we're going to have some consequences for our actions if we decide to do it how we want to do it. So, he sent Ananias, which was, like I said, he sent him to go pray for the very man that came to kill him. He went there, he told him, go lay your hands on him and pray for him. So God will have us go and pray for the same people that have hurt us, that have talked about us, that tried to throw dirt on our names, that, tried to diminish our character, just all of that. God, he'll have us to go pray for them people, to go help them same people. And like I said, that's where our love part comes in. Somebody can do something else and say, oh, I ain't doing nothing for them because they did this. We got to worry about what God is going to say about that, not how we feel about that. We have to take our emotions completely out of that. And that's one of the things, I'm still learning. I'm still loving. I'm still learning to love. You'll never stop learning anything as long as you keeping God front and center. God is going to continue to teach you things. Learning is continuous. And if you say you don't learn everything you need to know, then I'm going to be praying for you. But life is a continuous journey. You're going to continue to love and be taught over and over different things. Sometimes you're going to get that same lesson a couple of times until God is like, okay, I want you like really to get it. Okay? And so obedience is better than sacrifice. So when he told him to go lay his hands on Paul to give him his sight back, God gave Ananias the power because of his obedience that caused the scales, the blinders, to come from Saul's eyes so his vision could be restored. So when God gives us an assignment, when he gives us something to do, he's going to give us the power behind that to make whatever he had spoken possible. So he had given Ananias the power to take the blinders off of Paul's eyes so that he can now see. So if you stop wrestling with yourself and you humble yourself, you will have the power. God, you will have that power that God gives you. You will be able to access that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. You'll be able to access that power that God gives you if you stop wrestling with yourself. If you stop fighting yourself. If you stop saying, I want to do this. I'm going to do it this way. I want to do it my way. If I don't do it like this, they ain't going to respect me. If I seem like a chump, if I don't say nothing, or they going to think I'm soft. No. God is who you need to be worried about, not people. God punishment hit harder. Our real life worry about, oh my God, what is God going to do to me if I do this? If I say this, if I act like this, what is he going to do to me? And I don't want God punishment. I don't want his punishment. I don't want it. So I try my best to do what he's asked me to do. So he went from having a moment with God to having a moment as being a misfit. How could he go back to the same people and tell them about Jesus and he was no longer one of them? So how can he go back and preach and teach and do all this stuff and lay hands and all this stuff and to the same people that he had once talked about Jesus to, bad about? How? Y'all got so many notes, and this could really go on forever and ever and ever and ever. But to kind of sum all this up, you have to accept being who God has called you to be. You have to accept not fitting in. You have to accept being overlooked. You have to accept people coming at you sideways. You have to accept a lot of things to be able to receive all the things that God has for you. We can't allow people to cause us to miss what God has for us. And people will cause you to miss what God has for you, because like I say, some people do things because they know they can get a reaction out of you. And a lot of times when things happen to me, people do it because they want a reaction out of me. They want me to go back to my old self. Listen, my old self, woo, was HE double hockey sticks on wheels. Okay? I don't want to go. I don't even want to go back to her. I'm scared of her. I'm scared of her. So when things happen, like I said, it's a fight for me to do the right thing, because I fight what I once knew versus what God has now given me. And like I said, whenever we make a decision to do something, we also must know that there's a consequence behind it. And so we have to be ready for the consequence of what we are deciding to do. Okay? So if you feel left out, if you feel on the back burner, if you feel overlooked, if you feel used, if you feel like nobody sees you, nobody hears you, God hears you. God hears you. God hears you. And so, like I said, we just want to keep that in mind and keep God first in all that you do. I love y'all.